Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're actually looking inward at what has got to be one of the most incredible biological factories on Earth. Think about it. Inside you, right now, is a highly coordinated 20-foot-long tube dedicated to a single, absolutely vital purpose. Yep, we're talking about the human gastrointestinal tract. Let me ask you a question to get us started. What actually happens to your food after you swallow? I mean, we eat every single day, right? But we rarely stop to think about the massive undertaking that follows that first bite. It's not just the simple act of eating. It is this beautifully complex mechanical and chemical journey, breaking down everything from a crunchy apple to a slice of pizza into microscopic building blocks. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our literal itinerary down the GI tract for today. First, the digestion disassembly line, then down the hatch, into the acid bath, meeting the accessory helpers, the main event, and finally, the end of the line. Starting with Section 1, the digestion disassembly line, the rules of the gastrointestinal tract. The primary purpose of your GI tract is actually pretty straightforward, even if the execution is super complex. Basically, it needs to break down the large nutrient polymers from the food you eat into tiny absorbable monomers. Your body simply can't use a whole piece of bread to power its cells. It needs to distill it all the way down to its basic sugars. And this brilliantly illustrates the full scope of our journey. From the mouth all the way to the end, this orchestrated tube is constantly working to make that happen. But here's the mind-blowing part. To keep this disassembly line running smoothly, an incredible 7 liters of water, acid, buffers, and enzymes are secreted into the space every single day. So there are 6 essential steps that govern this entire biological assembly line. First is ingestion, taking the food in. Second is secretion, adding those 7 liters of fluids we just talked about. Third is motility. This one is absolutely crucial. It involves alternating contractions and relaxations of smooth muscle in the tract walls to mix food and actively propel it forward. Fourth is digestion, the actual breakdown. Fifth is absorption, pulling the nutrients into your blood. And finally, defecation, eliminating the waste. Now, to accomplish step 4, digestion, the body relies on this amazing dual action approach. First, we have mechanical digestion. This is the physical breakdown of food. Think chewing with your teeth or the physical churning of your stomach muscles. Then we've got chemical digestion. This is the enzymatic breakdown, where water and enzymes are used in a process called hydrolysis to physically break the chemical bonds of your food. And you're going to see this mechanical and chemical tag team working together throughout our entire journey today. Section 2, down the hatch, the mouth and esophagus. Let's start our chronological journey right at ingestion. The literal moment food enters your oral cavity, both the physical and chemical breakdown kick off simultaneously. Mechanically, your teeth cut and grind the food. This process, called mastication, is vital because it massively increases the surface area of the food particles. Why does surface area matter? Well, because it gives your chemical solvents a much larger area to attack. At the exact same time, chemically, your salivary glands are secreting saliva. And fun fact, you actually produce about 1 to 1.5 liters of saliva every single day. Crazy, right? And it isn't just moisture. It contains an enzyme called amylase, which immediately starts the chemical digestion of complex starches. Once you swallow, the whole process becomes completely automatic. Your tongue pushes the food back, a tiny flop called the epiglottis folds over your windpipe so you don't choke, and the food enters the esophagus. This triggers peristalsis, these rhythmic waves of smooth muscle contractions that actively squeeze and propel the food down the tract. It's actually not gravity doing the work here. Your muscles are physically pushing it down until it reaches a ring-like muscle called the lower esophageal sphincter, which just opens up to let the food pass. Section 3, the acid bath. Welcome to the stomach. So, welcome to the stomach. This is a highly acidic storage and mixing chamber where our disassembly line gets wonderfully aggressive. The stomach takes that mechanical and chemical dual action we mentioned to the absolute extreme. Most of your GI tract just has 2 muscle layers, but the stomach is unique. It has a third layer, an inner oblique layer. This allows it to violently churn and physically crush the food into a semi-liquid juice called chyme. Meanwhile, chemically, it is a truly harsh environment. Specialized parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid, dropping the pH down to a highly acidic 2. To put that into perspective, that is actually strong enough to dissolve certain metals. At the same time, chief cells secrete an enzyme called pepsin, which specifically starts dismantling proteins. Moving right along to Section 4, the accessory helpers, the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. Before our liquid chyme can move to the next major phase, we really have to rely on these solid organs sitting just off the main digestive tube. They are absolutely essential because they manufacture and store the heavy-duty chemical solvents we need for the rest of the journey. Let's rapid fire what these helpers do. First, the liver, the largest internal organ in your body, produces a substance called bile, which is specifically designed to digest fats and lipids. Second, the gallbladder, which is this small pear-shaped sac under the liver, stores that bile. And third, the pancreas secretes a really powerful juice packed with enzymes and buffers. So when food leaves the stomach, these accessory organs squirt their powerful digestive juices directly into the start of the small intestine to help out with the heavy lifting.
Section 5, the main event, the small intestine.
Now, this highly compressed, folded-up 20-foot tube is really the star of the show. This is where the vast majority of chemical digestion and nutrient absorption actually takes place. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it cleanly organizes the coordinated chemical bombardment happening here. The small intestine uses peristalsis to move things along, adding its own intestinal juice, but it's also receiving that pancreatic juice from the pancreas to break down carbs, fats, and proteins, plus bile from the liver to tackle the fats. It's just a perfectly coordinated chemical attack that finalizes the breakdown of our complex food into basic, simple building blocks. And that brings us to the ultimate goal of this entire system: absorption. This is the precise moment those tiny digested monomers cross the epithelial lining of the small intestine and go directly into your blood and lymph vessels. Think about this macro to micro shift for a second. You ate a sandwich, right? And now, chemically dismantled, the nutrients from that sandwich are finally crossing the barrier to truly enter your internal body. This is literally how you nourish your cells and get the energy to live. Section 6, the end of the line, the large intestine and defecation. Okay, so we've extracted almost all the nutrients at this point, so what happens to the leftover materials the body just couldn't absorb? Well, the large intestine acts almost like a picture frame around the tightly folded small intestine. As the indigestible matter moves through the cecum, up and around the colon, and down to the rectum, the large intestine plays a massive role by reabsorbing excess water and electrolytes back into your body, which solidifies the waste. But you aren't doing this alone. A fascinating aspect of this final stage is the microbiome. Billions of gut flora and bacteria reside right there in your large intestine. They have this crucial symbiotic role helping to break down some of that remaining indigestible food that your own enzymes just couldn't handle. After they've done their work, rhythmic contractions propel the final waste towards the anus to be eliminated from the body through defecation. It truly is a marvel. As our source material elegantly summarizes, food is broken down bit by bit until the molecules are small enough to be absorbed and the waste products are eliminated. It is an incredibly efficient, dual-action, perfectly coordinated biological machine that processes absolutely everything you consume. So I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought. Next time you take a bite, will you appreciate the 20-foot disassembly line waiting to go to work? It's a silent, highly efficient biological factory operating inside you every single day, keeping you fueled and alive. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the digestive system. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you on the next explainer.